The night they knocked on my door, the rain had already decided it would not forgive anyone. It slammed against the tin roof like an accusation, flooded the narrow street, and drowned out the city's usual noise until the world felt reduced to my small, flickering porch light. I remember thinking how strange it was that life-altering moments rarely arrive with warning, they just appear, soaked, shivering, and asking quietly for a place to exist. When I opened the door and saw two exhausted faces staring back at me, something in my chest tightened, because I knew, before a single word was fully understood, that whatever choice I made in the next few seconds would change all of us. Before the story pulls you any deeper, let me pause here for a moment. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the idea that small decisions can change lives, please take a second to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel, The Kindness Chronicles. Your support helps stories like this reach hearts that are still waiting to heal. I had always lived alone, not because I hated people, but because life had slowly trained me to keep my distance. Years earlier, a series of losses had taught me how fragile good intentions could be, how easily generosity could turn into regret. My apartment was modest, almost empty, the kind of place that reflected a man who had stopped expecting much from the future. So when those two young women stood there, clothes damp, eyes heavy with fear and embarrassment, my first instinct was hesitation. They explained, in broken fragments and hurried breaths, that they only needed one night, that they had nowhere else to go, that everything had fallen apart faster than they could understand. I remember glancing behind me at the narrow hallway, the single couch, the thin mattress on the floor, and wondering how kindness could fit into such a small space. Letting them in felt less like an act of bravery and more like surrender. I gave them dry towels, shared what little food I had, and watched as they slowly began to breathe again, as if safety itself was something they had forgotten how to do. That night, sleep refused to come easily. I lay awake listening to the rain fade into silence, my thoughts tangled with doubt. What if I was being foolish? What if trust came at a cost I couldn't afford? Yet beneath all that fear was a quieter voice reminding me that once, long ago, I had also been the one knocking on doors, hoping someone would see me as a human being and not a problem. Morning light revealed the weight they carried. One of them was older, her eyes hardened by responsibility she never asked for, while the other moved like someone still learning how to survive disappointment. Over shared tea and simple meals, their story unfolded not as drama, but as exhaustion. A broken home, a promise of work that vanished, a city that took more than it gave. They had been told they were strong enough to manage on their own, yet no one had prepared them for how cruel independence could be without support. Watching them, I realized how easy it is for the world to fail people quietly, without headlines or outrage. Days passed, then weeks, and the idea of one night stretched into something undefined. The challenges came quickly. Space was tight, privacy almost non-existent, and money thinner than ever. I struggled with my own frustration, with the fear that I was losing control of the carefully limited life I had built to protect myself. There were moments when resentment crept in, when I wondered why their misfortune had become my responsibility. But then I would notice small things, the way they cleaned without being asked, the way they shared their laughter softly as if afraid to take up too much room, the way gratitude lived in their eyes even when they said nothing. What surprised me most was how much they changed me. Their presence forced me to confront the walls I had built around my heart. Helping them find work, encouraging them when rejection followed rejection, and watching them refuse to give up taught me something I had forgotten: resilience is contagious. Slowly, the apartment felt less like a shelter and more like a home. We celebrated small victories together, mourned setbacks quietly, and learned how to coexist without crossing boundaries, without turning kindness into obligation. There were still hard days. Days when bills piled up, when exhaustion made patience thin, when the future looked uncertain for all of us. I questioned myself constantly, afraid that one wrong step could undo everything. But change rarely comes in dramatic leaps, it comes in quiet persistence. One of them found steady work. The other returned to her studies with renewed determination. Hope, once fragile, began to stand on its own. The day they told me they were ready to move out did not feel like relief. It felt like pride mixed with a strange, aching emptiness. Watching them pack their few belongings, I understood that kindness is not about saving people, it is about standing with them until they can walk on their own. They left my apartment stronger than they arrived, and I remained behind changed in ways I hadn't expected. The silence afterward was different, not lonely, but peaceful, as if the walls themselves had learned something important. Now, when I look back on that rainy night, I realize the question I asked at the door was never really about space. It was about whether my heart could hold more than fear. And somehow, by saying yes to two strangers for one night, I had made room for a version of myself I thought was gone forever. If this story has touched your heart even a little, please take a moment to like the video, share it with someone who believes in humanity, and subscribe to The Kindness.